You were this close. You could feel it. The momentum, the clarity, the sense that something enormous was finally within reach. Maybe it was the business you were building. Maybe it was a relationship that finally felt real. Maybe it was a version of yourself you had worked years to become, and you could see that person standing right there, just on the other side of a single decision. And then something happened. Not from the outside. No catastrophe arrived. No one betrayed you. The world did not collapse. You did something. Or you stopped doing something. You pulled back. You picked a fight with the wrong person at the wrong moment. You disappeared for 3 weeks. You convinced yourself it wasn't the right time. You flooded yourself with self-doubt so overwhelming that the momentum died, and you watched it go, almost as if you were watching from a corner of the room, unable to stop yourself. And afterward, maybe for days, maybe for months, you sat with that specific kind of grief that doesn't have a name. Not the grief of losing something that was taken from you. The grief of losing something you let go of, on purpose, with your own hands. And the most painful part? You don't fully understand why you did it. This video is for you. Not for the person who has never felt this. Not for the person who is casually curious. This is for the person who knows, who has watched themselves sabotage their own life at the exact moment it was about to change, and who needs to understand why at a level deep enough to finally stop it. By the time this video ends, you will understand something that most spiritual content will never tell you, and most psychology content doesn't yet have the language to fully name. You will understand that your self-sabotage is not a character flaw. It is not proof that you are broken, unworthy, or not truly called to the path you feel pulled toward. It is in fact something far more specific and far more solvable than any of those explanations. You will understand the precise biological, psychological, and spiritual mechanism that causes people with the deepest callings to destroy their greatest opportunities, and you will leave here with a framework for recognizing it the next time it happens, in real time, before the damage is done. This is not motivational content. I am not going to tell you that you are powerful and that you just need to believe in yourself. You have heard that. It hasn't been enough. What I am going to offer you today is something more honest and more useful. Let's begin. Let's start with the moment itself, because it has a very specific shape, and once you learn to recognize it, you will see that it has appeared in your life multiple times. The breakthrough moment is not a sudden event. It is a threshold. It is a point in time where the life you have been living and the life you are capable of living come into direct contact with each other, and the pressure of that contact becomes almost unbearable. In mythology, and Carl Jung spent decades studying this, the threshold is always guarded. Every hero's journey has a threshold guardian, a figure, a trial, a dragon. But here is what the myths never explain clearly enough. In the psychological reality of modern human experience, the threshold guardian is not a separate entity. It is you. It is the part of you that formed years, sometimes decades ago, in response to environments that required you to be smaller, quieter, less visible, less demanding. The guardian is not evil. It is loyal. It is loyal to an older version of you that needed protection. And it will destroy every breakthrough on that version's behalf unless you can learn to speak to it directly. Think about the last time you were close to something real. Not close in a dreaming way, close in a practical, tangible way, where you had taken the steps, where the evidence was accumulating, where the people around you were beginning to see it too. What did the voice inside you say? For most people I speak with in this space, the voice says one of three things. It says, "You're not ready," or it says, "This isn't really happening. Don't get your hopes up," or it says, "You'll just ruin it like you always do." Notice that none of those three statements are about the opportunity. They are all about you. They are identity statements. And that is the key to everything we are going to cover today. Self-sabotage at the moment of breakthrough is not about the thing you are reaching for. It is about who you believe you are in the moment you reach. Stay with me, because what I'm about to tell you in the next section is the part that most spiritual teachers either don't know or don't say out loud. Here is the counterintuitive thesis of this entire video, and I need you to really sit with this, because it is going to feel uncomfortable before it feels liberating. Your self-sabotage is not a malfunction. It is your nervous system working exactly as designed. The problem is not that something is broken inside you. The problem is that something is working for the wrong era of your life. Let me explain this biologically because it matters. Your autonomic nervous system, the part of your biology that governs your stress responses, your sense of safety, your capacity to take action, does not distinguish between physical danger and psychological danger. To your nervous system, the threat of being seen, of rising beyond what your family ever achieved, of becoming a person whose visibility makes you a target for criticism, these threats register with the same physiological weight as a predator in the dark. The body does not know the difference. It only knows this is unfamiliar territory, and unfamiliar territory has historically been where organisms get killed. When you are on the edge of a breakthrough, your nervous system, specifically the part called the dorsal vagal complex, which governs the freeze response, begins to detect not danger from the environment, but danger from the novelty of what is becoming possible. And it begins to pull you back toward what it knows, toward the familiar, toward the life that, however painful, has at least proven survivable. This is called neuroception, a term developed by Dr. Stephen Porges in his polyvagal theory. Neuroception is the body's unconscious, below-awareness scanning of the environment for signals of safety or threat. And here is the devastating irony for people on an accelerated spiritual path. The higher your baseline threat response, which is almost always elevated in people who experienced early life instability, emotional unpredictability, or chronic uncertainty, the more your neuroception will flag success itself as a threat. Read that again. Your body may be flagging your own success as a danger signal. This is why you can do all the mindset work in the world, read every book, attend every seminar, repeat every affirmation, and still find yourself standing at the edge of the breakthrough and stepping backwards. It is not because your mind hasn't learned. It is because your nervous system hasn't been shown that it is safe to move forward. And who are the people most likely to have this elevated baseline threat response? They are the people who grew up carrying weight they were never supposed to carry. The emotionally parentified children. The ones who learn to read rooms before they learn to read books. The sensitive ones. The empathic ones. The ones who absorbed the anxiety of the people around them because no one taught them that they didn't have to. The ones who were simultaneously too much and never enough in the same household. Does that sound familiar? I thought it might. Carl Jung described the shadow as the parts of ourselves that we have rejected, buried, or refused to acknowledge, not because they're always dark or shameful, but because integrating them would require us to become someone different than who we currently are. Most people think of shadow work as confronting the worst parts of themselves, their rage, their jealousy, their pettiness. And while that is part of it, Jung identified something that is far less discussed: the golden shadow, the luminous shadow. The parts of yourself that you have buried not because they are terrible, but because they are magnificent. And you were taught, directly or indirectly, that your magnificence was dangerous. Dangerous to whom? To the peace of the system you grew up in. Families, communities, social groups, they are all systems. And systems, by their very nature, have homeostasis as their primary function. They resist change. They resist deviation. They resist any member becoming so different from the established norm that the entire system's identity is called into question. This is not malicious. It is structural. Your parents may have loved you deeply and still sent you through 1,000 tiny signals over 10,000 days the message, do not outshine this family. Do not become someone we cannot understand. Do not grow so large that we lose you. And so you buried the bright parts. You learned to dim the frequency. You developed what psychologists call an adapted self, a version of you that was tolerable to the environment. Smart enough to be respected, but not so brilliant as to be threatening. Spiritual enough to be interesting, but not so awakened as to make others feel asleep. Ambitious enough to be admirable, but not so driven as to expose the inertia of the people around you. That adapted self became your default operating system, and it has been running your life. Here is the thing about the breakthrough moment, and this is crucial. A genuine breakthrough does not just change your circumstances, it changes who you are. It requires the adapted self to step down. And the adapted self, the one that has kept you safe for 30 or 40 years, does not step down without a fight. Pause here. Think about your own life for a moment. Is there a version of yourself, bolder, larger, fully expressed, that you have been quietly apologizing for wanting to become? That is not ambition. That is not ego. That is your soul trying to move forward while your psychological immune system tries to keep you contained. The self-sabotage is the immune system doing its job. And the job was programmed by a child who needed to survive a specific environment that no longer exists. In 1957, psychologist Leon Festinger introduced the concept of cognitive dissonance, the profound psychological discomfort that occurs when a person holds two contradictory beliefs simultaneously. And while most people apply this concept to conscious beliefs, its most devastating expression happens at the level of identity. Here is the identity gap that is tearing you apart internally, even if you have never named it this way. On one side, there is the identity you have accumulated, the story your nervous system has confirmed through repetition. I am the person who struggles. I am the person who almost makes it. I am the person who has deep gifts, but is somehow never quite able to fully bring them into the world. I am the person who understands things others don't, who feels things others can't, but who remains somehow behind some invisible glass wall from the life they can see. This identity is not what you want, but it is what you know. It is the known quantity. It is the survival-tested version of reality. On the other side, there is the emerging identity, the one the breakthrough would confirm. I am someone whose gifts create real, tangible impact. I am someone who is seen and supported and sustained in their fullness. I am someone who does not have to earn their place by suffering first. This identity feels true at the soul level, but it is unproven. It is outside the data set your nervous system has accumulated. And the gap between these two identities, the known and the emerging, creates a dissonance so severe that your psyche will work overtime to resolve it. And how does the psyche resolve cognitive dissonance? Not by choosing the higher belief, not by upgrading to the emerging identity. It resolves dissonance by defaulting to the one it has the most evidence for. And since you have spent most of your life accumulating evidence for the story of the person who almost makes it, the breakthrough gets sabotaged. Not because you are weak, because your psyche is efficient. It is doing exactly what cognitive systems do. It is resolving contradiction by returning to consistency. This is why breakthrough work cannot only be mindset work. It cannot only be affirmations and visualization and intention setting. Those tools work at the level of the conscious mind. But the self-sabotage is happening in the deeper system, the pre-verbal, somatic, identity-level architecture that was built before you had words for any of it. You cannot think your way out of an identity. You have to live your way into a new one. And that process has a specific cost that no one talks about enough. Stay with me, because what I am about to describe in the next chapter is the thing that, once you hear it, will finally explain every confusing pattern in your own story. Every genuine transformation is, at its core, a death, not metaphorically. Psychologically, neurologically, and in terms of identity architecture, it is a real death. The self that existed before the breakthrough cannot exist after it. The patterns, the stories, the coping mechanisms, the relationships that were built around a smaller version of you, they cannot all survive the crossing. And here is the part that no one wants to say directly. Some part of you knows this. Some part of you understands that stepping fully through the threshold means losing the life you have built, the identity you have maintained, possibly some of the people you love. And that knowing, even when it is entirely unconscious, activates what psychologists call terror management. Terror management theory, developed by Jeff Greenberg and his colleagues, proposes that human behavior is profoundly shaped by the awareness of mortality, not just physical death, but the death of the symbolic self, the death of the story of who you are. And the research shows clearly, when people sense that their identity is under existential threat, they do not expand. They contract. They cling. They attack. They retreat into the familiar. This is why chosen ones, and by that term I mean something very specific, people who carry an unusually strong inner calling, who have felt from an early age that they are here for something particular, who have walked through unusual amounts of pain and emerged with unusual levels of perception. This is why these people are especially prone to this specific kind of self-destruction. The calling is real. The gifts are real. The path is real. But the identity that was forged in the years before the calling was fully understood. That identity has a survival drive as powerful as any biological instinct. And when the breakthrough arrives, the old identity treats it not as an opportunity, but as an extinction event. And so it fights. It fights by introducing doubt at the most inconvenient moments. It fights by recreating familiar conflicts, arguments, failures, cycles of chaos. Because chaos, however painful, is a known state. It fights by making you suddenly desperately focused on whether you truly deserve what is coming, precisely when there is no more time to productively ask that question. It picks the fight. It drinks too much. It pushes the important person away. It convinces you that you should do more research before you launch. It makes you sleep for 14 hours the day the important call is scheduled. It manufactures emergencies. It is creative, relentless, and it has known you your entire life. Here is what I want you to understand. The old self is not your enemy. It is a loyal protector running outdated software. It was built in a context where its strategies were necessary. The work is not to annihilate it. The work is to renegotiate, to thank it, to say, with the fullness of your nervous system, not just your words, I know you have kept me alive. I know you are afraid, and I'm going to cross this threshold anyway. Not because I'm not afraid, but because I understand now what the fear actually is, and it is not a signal to stop. I want to speak to something that runs through the center of this particular pattern, and it requires a kind of honesty that most content in this space avoids. The people who self-sabotage most dramatically at breakthrough moments are, almost without exception, the people who have been in the most profound contact with their own depth. They are the people who have survived things that would have flattened others. The people who developed sensitivity, spiritual, emotional, perceptual, as a direct response to early environments that demanded advanced coping. The people whose gifts were, in a very real sense, forged in pain. And this creates a devastating psychological entanglement. If your gift was born from your wound, and this is the pattern for the vast majority of people on a genuine spiritual path, then on some level, the unconscious self has made an equation. I can have the gift, or I can be healed, but not both. Because if I heal, the wound closes. And if the wound closes, what happens to the gift? This is one of the most insidious forms of self-sabotage, and it operates entirely below the level of conscious awareness. The person does not know they are doing it. They only know that every time they get close to a life that feels genuinely at peace, genuinely sustained, genuinely supported, something inside them whispers that they are betraying something sacred, that they are leaving behind the version of themselves that actually mattered. In Jungian terms, this is the wound becoming the self, the adaptation becoming the identity, the scar being mistaken for the skin. You are not your wound, but your wound may have taught you things that your gifts now require you to transmit to others. And here is the distinction that will change everything when you finally make it internally. You do not need to remain in pain in order to speak meaningfully to pain. You do not need to stay at the edge of breakthrough in order to guide others who are at theirs. In fact, the people who most need what you carry are waiting for the version of you who has crossed the threshold, not the version who has circled it for another decade. The most powerful thing you can transmit is not your suffering. It is the evidence of your crossing. Pause here. Really sit with that. Because if any part of you has believed that your growth would somehow make you less able to reach the people who need you, that belief is the mechanism. That is the thing keeping you exactly where you are. Everything I have described up to this point has been diagnosis. And diagnosis, however accurate, is not transformation. So let us be practical, in the way that blends what the nervous system actually needs with what the soul is actually asking for. First, learn to recognize the threshold state in your body, not your mind. The threshold state has a somatic signature, a specific felt sense in the body that arrives when you are genuinely close to breakthrough. For most people, it feels like a combination of excitement and dread that is almost indistinguishable from each other. The chest is tight. The thoughts accelerate. Sleep becomes strange. Small irritations become enormous. This is not a sign that something is wrong. This is the felt sense of your nervous system reaching the edge of its known territory. When you learn to recognize this state, not as a red flag but as a waypoint, you stop responding to it by retreating. You begin responding to it by saying, "I know this feeling. This is the edge. The edge is not the end. This is where the crossing begins." Second, regulate before you decide. The majority of self-sabotaging decisions are made in a dysregulated nervous system state. The fight picked, the application abandoned, the relationship pushed away. These decisions almost never happen from a calm, ventral, vagal state, the physiological state of social engagement, safety, and integrated thinking. They happen from the activated state, the flooded state. This is why the most sophisticated spiritual practice you can develop right now is not more meditation or more journaling or more self-inquiry. It is the ability to regulate your nervous system in real time, in the moments before a high-stakes decision. Slow exhalations that are longer than your inhalations. Cold water on the face or wrists. Physical movement before response. These are not small, manageable tips. These are the precise interventions that interrupt the threat response long enough for your prefrontal cortex, your actual decision-making intelligence, to come back online. Third, build evidence for the new identity before the breakthrough arrives. Because identity follows evidence, not intention. You need to create a data set of moments where the new self acted and the world did not collapse. Not enormous moments, tiny ones. Moments where you let yourself be seen and survived it. Moments where you set a boundary with someone who expected you to collapse and you held. Moments where you took the step that frightened you and landed on the other side intact. Each of these is not just a life event. It is a piece of testimony that you are offering to your nervous system. Look, this is safe. This person, the larger, freer, more expressed version of us, they can survive out here. We do not have to pull them back. Fourth, grieve the old self explicitly. This is the step that is almost never taken, and its absence is why so many people cross partial thresholds but never fully arrive. The old self deserves to be grieved. The adapted version of you, the one that learned to be small, to be careful, to earn love through performance and peace through invisibility. That person carried enormous weight for a very long time. They deserve acknowledgement, not just replacement. Spend time, real time, not token time, in genuine gratitude for who you have been. The coping mechanisms that kept you functioning when you had no other tools, the relationships you maintained through sheer force of will, the compromises you made to preserve connection in environments that did not know how to love you without conditions. These are not failures. They are evidence of a survival that was heroic, even if it looks like limitation from the outside. You cannot fully inhabit the new identity while secretly ashamed of the old one. The integration must be complete. You must be able to say, I was that person. I needed to be that person. And I am something more now. Stay with me one more moment, because what I'm going to say in closing is the thing I most need you to carry with you when this video ends. I want to speak to you directly now, not as a teacher, not as someone who has solved this and is handing you the solution from a safe distance, as someone who has stood exactly where you are standing, who has watched themselves destroy something precious, something real, something they had worked for, and who had to sit in the wreckage of that and find the thread back to themselves. The reason you are watching this video is not random. Not because an algorithm delivered it to you, though it may have. The reason you are watching this is because you are at a threshold right now. Maybe not the most dramatic threshold of your life, but a threshold. Something is asking to move through you, some version of yourself, some contribution, some relationship, some expression that has been waiting for you to be ready. And some part of you is afraid that being ready means losing something you love, the familiar ache, the identity of the seeker, the people who need you to remain slightly less than what you could be. I want to tell you something, and I want you to receive it not just with your mind, but with whatever part of you still has the capacity to be reached. You were never meant to stay at the edge. The edge is not your home. The edge is a passageway. And the fact that you keep returning to it, the fact that you cannot simply abandon the calling and go live a smaller life, even though some days that feels like it would be such a relief, the fact that you come back again and again to the threshold, that is not pathology. That is calling. That is the soul's refusal to accept a life that does not honor the full architecture of what you are. The self-sabotage has been real. The pain of it has been real. But here is what is equally real. The calling did not go away. Every time you pulled back, it waited. Every time you collapsed, it rebuilt. Every time you convinced yourself it was too late, too much, too impossible, the thread remained. And you followed it here, to this moment, to this video, to this conversation between us. That thread is not accidental, and you are not accidental. The specific combination of everything you have survived, the losses, the confusions, the moments of near breakthrough and retreat, the relationships that broke you open, the years of feeling like you are living between two worlds, not fully belonging to either the ordinary life or the fully realized one. That combination is not a biography of failure. It is a curriculum. It is the precise preparation for the specific thing only you can offer. But the preparation must end in action. The training must end in the crossing. And the crossing, I will not lie to you, requires you to grieve the version of yourself who has kept you company through all of it. To say goodbye to the adapted self with love, not contempt. To take the hand of the version of you that frightens you, the bold one, the visible one, the one who does not ask permission, and to step forward together. Not when you are ready. You will never feel completely ready. Readiness, as you have experienced it, is not a feeling that arrives before the threshold. It is a feeling that arrives after. It is the reward for the crossing, not the prerequisite. Step forward before you feel ready. That is what courage actually is. And if you take nothing else from everything I have shared with you today, let it be this. The next time you feel the threshold approaching, and you will, because the path is not a single crossing but a series of them, each one asking more of you than the last. When you feel the chest tighten, the doubt rise, the familiar pull backward into what is known, stop. Put your hand on your heart. Say out loud, in your own words, what is actually happening. Say, I am at the edge. My nervous system is reading this as a threat. But this is not danger. This is the threshold. And I know what to do at a threshold now. I walk through it. That is all. That is the entire practice compressed into its simplest form. You came here for a reason. You have stayed this long for a reason. And someone in your life, someone specific, someone you can see in your mind right now, is stuck in the same loop you have been stuck in. They have been circling their threshold for years, and they cannot name what is happening. They do not have the language for it yet. Send them this video. Not because it will fix everything, nothing fixes everything, but because naming the pattern correctly is the first act of breaking it. And the most powerful thing one soul can do for another is to say, I see what is happening to you, and there is a way through. You are not broken. You were never broken. You are in the process of becoming something that takes longer than ordinary lives to build, because it is built to carry more than ordinary weight. The breakthrough is still there. It waited for you before. It will wait a little longer, but not forever. The time is now. The threshold is real, and you are more than ready. If this reached something in you, leave a comment below with just one word that describes what you felt while watching. I read every single one, and if someone came to mind while you were watching, someone who has been standing at their threshold for too long, share this with them. That act itself is part of your crossing.